portion of this video is brought to you by Ground News. For more information about Ground News, visit the link in the description or wait till the end of this video to hear more from me. So Donald Trump all but announced he doesn't want to be president of the United States anymore. He wants to be president of Gaza and this new resort development that he announced yesterday. In an absolute bananas press conference, Donald Trump sitting next to war criminal Bibi Netanyahu, the administrator of a genocide against the Palestinian people, Donald Trump stood there and made an announcement that was so callous, so feckless, so stupid, so absolutely just galaxy-brained moron bullshit here that it's hard to believe. I often say that we shouldn't be surprised by what is taking place, but we should still maintain our shock at what is taking place. And this was a move that actually I was surprised by. Things this term are worse than I expected them to be. Donald Trump is sinking to new lows. He has dragged the Republican Party to what was always pretty radical, but the Overton window has shifted. What used to be a hard line, radical position within the Republican Party is now just run-of-the-mill. In the early 2000s, Pat Buchanan, just a virulent, racist, nativist, to the point of white supremacists really coming to his defense and his support. He wrote a book called America, A Republic, Not an Empire. We'll put some screenshots up. And in the book, he argued that we should be isolationists, that we shouldn't be getting involved in foreign conflicts. We shouldn't be involving ourselves in the matters across oceans. And it was controversial at the time in the mainstream Republican Party because he was, kind of a firebrand radical. Let me find a quote from an Amazon just to give you an idea of what the book is about. It says, now available in paperback, a book that's 22 years old, all but predicting the September 11 attack on the World Trade Center, Buchanan examines and critiques America's recent foreign policy and argues for new policies that consider America's interests first. America's interests first. America first. He was there long before Donald Trump was there. And now it's the normal thing. Things that used to be unheard of in the Republican Party, or at least poo-pooed as extreme and radical, are now, because Donald Trump says them, just accepted as reality, as conservatism, as the new ethos for the Republican Party, because he's hijacked it. I'm going long here. Here's Donald Trump. Here's about a minute or so of Donald Trump's announcement, and it is insane to me. It is baffling to me. It is alarming to me that Donald Trump is taking this move to take ownership of Gaza while expelling the people who are native there. Watch this.
The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site. Virtually every building is down. They're living under fallen concrete that's very dangerous and very precarious. They instead can occupy all of a beautiful area with homes and safety, and they can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different, just can't go back.
You're going to create housing in a beautiful, safe area for people to live, for the people of the area, huh? That's after you've expelled the Palestinian people from their homeland, right? So who are these people of the area who will live there, Donald Trump? As you sit next to war criminal, again, administrator of a genocide, who's smugly sitting there grinning like a Cheshire cat. this announcement was kind of just transitioned into a press conference, and journalists were asking Donald Trump with more specificity about what his plans are. And Kelly O'Donnell from NBC News asked this very poignant question about talking about a permanent occupation there or just redevelopment, because it is what this is. Jared Kushner talked about, and Donald Trump has talked about, the waterfront property there and how valuable Gaza is as a tourist attraction. Because for Donald Trump, it's about how much money he can make. He is going to parlay this genocide into profit for himself, income for himself, revenue for himself and his ghoulish family, profiting off the presidency of the United States. Watch this from Kelly O'Donnell.
You are talking tonight about the United States taking over a sovereign territory. What authority would allow you to do that? Are you talking about a permanent occupation there, redevelopment? And Mr. Prime Minister, do you see this idea as a way to expand the boundaries of Israel and to have a longer peace, even though the Israeli people know how important that land is to you and your citizens, just as the space is inherited by the Palestinians as well?
I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent in a really magnificent area that nobody would know. Nobody can look because all they see is death and destruction and rubble and demolished buildings falling all over. It's just a terrible sight. I've studied it. I've studied this very closely over a lot of months, and I've seen it from every different angle. And it's a very, very dangerous place to be, and it's only going to get worse.
So one, he is absolutely talking about the United States owning Gaza. How does that work? He didn't answer any of her questions. The other thing that I want to comment on that seems just so callous and gross is him saying, well, we got to fix it. It's rubble. There's death and destruction, while standing next to the man who has overseen that rubble, that creation of death and destruction, of tens of thousands of women and children and non-combatants being murdered, specifically targeted by Netanyahu's military. Caitlin Collins, I'm going to wrap with this. I've got a Scott Jennings clip, but I'm not going to play it because at this point it's just nonsense. But Caitlin Collins asks specifically, who will live there in this territory that the United States owns? Who will live there, and where are you going to send the Palestinians to, since Donald Trump is now his main focus of his administration is creating internment camps and refugee camps for people, immigrants in the United States, and also, I guess, refugees elsewhere across the globe. Watch this moment from Caitlin Collins.
Up on what you were saying about the Gazans leaving Gaza, going to other countries. One, where exactly are you suggesting that they should go? And two, are you saying they should return after it's rebuilt? And if not, who do you envision living there?
I envision people living there, the world's people. I think you'll make that into an international, unbelievable place. I think the potential in the Gaza Strip is unbelievable. And I think the entire world, representatives from all over the world will be there, and they'll live there. Palestinians also. Palestinians will live there. Many people will live there. But they've tried the other, and they've tried it for decades and decades and decades. It's not going to work. It didn't work. It will never work.
I envision world people living there. The world's people. I've said it too many times to count at this point. I would have to go back through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos to count the number of times that I've said, stop electing stupid people to high office. Stop electing sinister people to high office. Please. We need to recapture the minds of Americans who are under the Svengali-like trance of Donald Trump and his idiocy. This man who hasn't read a motherfucking book maybe since high school, and maybe not even then. He's the one informing the Republican Party of what the priorities are. Supporting genocide, encouraging more genocide, more killing. This isn't and never has been about punishing Hamas or eliminating Hamas, the terrorist organization. If it were, they wouldn't be talking about development and ownership of this land. They wouldn't be talking about resettlement projects, sending 2+ million people to live wherever in multiple locations or maybe one big location. Where's that gonna be? There's no specificity to these plans whatsoever because there cannot be. This will ultimately be a human rights disaster, a violation of international law. And because we're the United States, the most powerful country on the planet, what is anyone going to do? It will take action from the European Union to start sanctions, trade wars, which may lead to actual hot war. Donald Trump is a fucking disaster of a president, as a human being, as a leader, as a billionaire. He's a self-interested goon. The dear leader cannot be wrong, though. We must support the dear leader. Because now he's got a 2,000+ member militia, armed militia, also armed with presidential pardons to do his bidding. And if you think I'm being exaggerative, let me know in the comments. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. The worst possible timeline we are in. If you want to help support this work, I would appreciate it very much. Independent media, very, very much needed right now in this moment, especially while the media misses the moment. Click the join button below. For $1.99 per month, you can become a channel member. You can also go over to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. Both those are great ways to help support this work. I would appreciate it very much. You can also go over to Dollemore.com, check out the new merch, t-shirts and stickers, and all of that goes a long way to help support this work as well. And you get something tangible in return to slap on your laptop or a magnet to put on your fridge or whatever to remind you of what a great fella I am. Anyway, I love and appreciate you very much. I'll see you next time. Until then, be genuine and take care of one another. You hear me regularly talking about Trump's playbook to consolidate power. But his appointment of Kari Lake to lead Voice of America takes his attacks to a uniquely disturbing level. Lake, like Trump, has made a career of attacking journalists and denying facts. She will now be in charge of an independent network whose purpose is to provide unbiased reporting. If you search this story on Ground News, it's laid out for you. Hundreds of articles clearly organized by perspective, and nearly all of them flagging serious concerns about the editorial independence of Voice of America. And yet, the America First crowd continues to call this appointment fair. The rest of us should call it what it is, though: propaganda. Trump knows that controlling the narrative is the first step to controlling the populace. Don't take my word for it, though. Go see for yourself. I use Ground News to help me critically analyze the news, and you should too. When algorithms decide the news you see, it's easy to feel powerless and uninformed. Let Ground News help you get a more complete view of the story. They are the only platform not trying to tell you what to think. For a limited time, you can get the same Vantage plan I use for nearly half the cost. Go to ground.news/Dollemore or scan my QR code to get their top-tier Vantage plan for 50% off, which comes down to just about $4 per month. Ground News is completely independent, nonpartisan, and they are not manipulating algorithms. They also don't show ads on their platform for clickbait. Instead, they organize every story by perspective, highlighting the outlet's bias and credibility, as well as their financial backers, so you know exactly who is controlling the narrative that they're spinning. You can filter out extremist outlets to focus on reliable reporting that actually matters. Think of the time you can save when sifting through biased coverage and misinformation. You might even find a new and highly credible outlet that could use your support. So your ground news subscription would also protect independent media voices that are daily under attack. We're watching institutions that keep our democracy transparent and accountable crumble right before our eyes. That's why I trust ground news to make sure the truth never gets buried. You should too.